legislation. Following the call to action from the Trump administration at the federal level, and President Donald Trump's policies on removing the middleman from pharmaceutical pricing, essentially driving up the cost of prescriptions by these groups known as PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, we are going to be eliminating them in the state of Ohio as it relates to GLP-1 coverage for state employees. So this is personal to me. So many of you know, I was injured at the age of 21 and disabled for a very long time. I underwent a lot of back surgeries, and at one point I grew to 458 pounds at my heaviest. I was on prescription opiates for over a decade, and it ruined my metabolism. So even after my spine was surgically repaired and I had metal rods inserted in my spine, I struggled daily with pain that was caused by my obesity. So in 2013, I underwent a gastric sleeve here in the state of Ohio at Cleveland Clinic. And I lost the weight. I lost 200 pounds. That was enough to remove the pain from my back and allow me to be functional and go to college. But eventually, like most gastric sleeve patients, the weight returned. The surgery failed. And when I got sworn in here in the legislature, I weighed over 300 pounds. And I didn't realize it at the time until I saw myself on TV holding books next to Bill Seitz. And I realized how big I had gotten again during the campaign. So I was excited to find out that our health insurance coverage here in the state of Ohio for all employees, including elected officials, covered what's known as GLP-1s for weight loss, not just diabetes, but for weight loss. And that coverage continued until DAS decided to end that coverage as of July 1st of this year. My understanding, I met with the director, and she said it was a cost-saving measure, that we had 2,000 patients currently on these type of medications, and it was costing the state of Ohio around $45 million a year. I asked DAS if they had sent out notifications at that point, and they said they had not. I asked them if I could have 1 week to work on this issue. I asked if they had tried any alternatives to try to drive down the cost. And the only alternative they had tried was increasing the BMI requirements above what the FDA recommends. That resulted in the state of Ohio not being eligible for rebates and having to pay full market price for these GLP-1s. And it did not drop the rate of usage here in the state of Ohio by our employees. That was the only thing they attempted. I asked for a week to be able to address it, and I directly met with the manufacturers. And we were able to get both of the major manufacturers to the table. And we were working out an agreement when I received an email notifying me that my health insurance coverage was no longer going to cover GLP-1s. Now, luckily, over the years of my usage, my doctors have been smart about GLP-1s, and I did what's called titrating down. So I currently take max dose of Wegovy, but I don't take a weekly dose. I take one dose every 6 weeks. And we're phasing it off to 8 weeks and eventually all the way off the medication. And because of GLP-1s, I've lost over 100 pounds in the last 2 years. And truthfully, it was within the first year of my term here in the legislature, I lost 100 pounds. And you can go back and look at videos of me speaking on the floor compared to today. I was over 300 pounds, and today I weigh in at 192. And my back is great. Even though I have coverage for chiropractors, I haven't gone to the chiropractor in months. I don't take any pain medication. I'm able to exercise and remain a healthy lifestyle, and I'm getting off of this medication. So, following Donald Trump's approach, the president had a great framework of trying to get around PBMs. So what we are going to do here in the state of Ohio is, instead of our insurance plan covering GLP-1, where we will have to pay full market price at over $1,000 a month for each patient, we are going to allow our employees in this legislation to go direct to the manufacturer. Manufacturers have programs for consumers to go directly to their website and be able to purchase the medication directly from them. Some low-dose medications are as cheap as $350 per month. The high-dose max doses are around $500 per month. This legislation will provide a rebate to all state employees, including elected officials like myself. Now, I will note that I will not benefit from this legislation. As many of you are aware, I announced that I'm not running for re-election. And because I am titrated down, I have enough GLP-1 in my refrigerator to last me almost a year. So I will not, I repeat, I will not personally benefit from this legislation, but the employees of the state of Ohio will. We know that obesity is a serious issue in our community. We know that obesity leads to workforce shortages and people being reliant on government subsidies because they can't go to work. So the way this will work is every month an employee who purchases GLP-1s direct to manufacturers will be able to apply for a rebate from DAS. They must meet the FDA requirements of 30% BMI to be eligible. They will be allowed to be on this rebate program for 24 months. 24 months. In the first 12 months, they will be covered at 100% of out-of-pocket costs, capped at $500. That covers all the way up to the highest dose that we're seeing. Out-of-pocket costs for the highest dose from both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, both manufacturers we personally work with for months to draft this legislation. This will be the first piece of legislation in the country that will provide a rebate from the government to their employees for direct-to-consumer models. In the second year, in the second 12-month window, we will cover at 50% of out-of-pocket costs, maximum of $250. The goal is to get the employees to get good outcomes from the first year and start to titrate or reduce their reliance on the medication moving forward. But if there are individuals that after the 2-year period, they go off of GLP-1s and their weight returns, if they gain more than 20% of the weight that they lost during that 2-year window, they can reapply to DAS for a new 24-month period of coverage. They would have to show that the weight returned, right? We are trying to provide for our employees to be healthy. And sometimes it takes the assistance of medications to do that. And I've tried everything under the sun. I've had weight loss surgery. I've tried medication that was prescribed by me by Cleveland Clinic. Some of them were very harmful drugs. And now I tried GLP-1s and they were successful, and I'm able to transition off of them. So we are looking for coverage for our employees moving forward. This is in direct response to the decision by DAS that we believe was reckless for our employees. And let's talk about what this is. This is not out-of-pocket extra expense by the state of Ohio. We will save millions under this policy. So those same 2,000 employees who previously had coverage and the director said was costing us $45 million a year, under our plan, even if all of them, all 2,000 were at max dose in their first year, it would cost us an estimated $12 million. Now we know everyone's not at that high dose. So the low dose amount of $250 per month for 2,000 patients would be $6 million. So that's the range that it can cost us. And we anticipate at least half being in each window. So that would mean a cost of $9 million. And that's a high estimate because not every employee is gonna decide to go out of pocket and pay for the medication up front. But we went from $45 million for the cost of our coverage to $9 million by going direct to consumer and getting around the PBMs that were driving up the cost. We are now at 20% of the cost of what it was previously, saving the state of Ohio 80% of the cost of these GLP-1s. And that's by following President Donald Trump's motto of getting the middleman out of the way and allowing us to drive down the cost of prescriptions to our employees. I appreciate your guys' time, and I open the floor for any questions.
Why didn't you try to get this into the budget with that price tag? Do you think the state will be able to spend that extra money in the coming months or a year and a half or so?
No, we didn't try at all to get it in the budget because it took drafted. This is the first piece of legislation like this in the country. So we wanted to get it right. And it was one that I wasn't going to rush. And we've had multiple revisions of it, multiple interested party meetings in regards to it, making sure that the outline structure was something that the manufacturers can get on board. Because typically in order for you to, like in insurance coverages, in order for you to get their rebate, you must meet their guidelines, which is your criteria can't exceed the FDA guidelines for GLP-1s for weight loss. The state of Ohio went above that guideline and increased our BMI to 40%. That made it where we were ineligible for rebates. But we weren't getting the rebates in the first place. the PBMs were keeping the rebates. We were paying full price under our prescription coverage, and the PBMs were getting the low amount from the manufacturers and keeping the middle dollar. And instead, we're gonna just go around them. We're gonna go direct to manufacturers. So I would have loved to get it in the budget, but unfortunately, I wasn't gonna rush the legislation, because we're hoping that this legislation in Ohio is going to be model legislation for every single state that's deciding whether or not they want to continue this. And we've seen several states either reduce or eliminate coverage because of the cost, the monthly cost associated with this. Some states have tried the same thing Ohio did and changed the criteria, and they lost their rebates and they had to pay full price, and it actually drove up the cost. The answer is not trying to reduce the number of people that are on this medication. The answer is cutting out the middleman that's driving up the cost of prescriptions here in the United States. And that's these middlemen, PBMs, that are literally driving our local pharmacies out of business.
You spoke on the floor yesterday about all the savings that the budget has in terms of Medicaid. Have you looked at the possibility of trying something like this with Medicaid, with the idea that in the long run it would save the state money?
Oh, we will look at it in the future, and we were interested in exploring the idea of Medicaid coverage when I first started in this General Assembly. But then we heard the news that DAS is not even going to cover state employees. So it was a hill too far to climb. So one, I had to preserve those individuals that work for the state of Ohio who already were undergoing this medical treatment. And I consider it a life-saving treatment because I think it really did save my life. It allowed me to get out of the bed and get back into the workforce, and I wouldn't be standing in front of you as an elected official if I wasn't on this medication, because it used to really be painful for me to be down here. A 2.5-hour drive from Toledo killed my back when I was 300 pounds. Walking up and down these stairs and back and forth to committees every day killed my back in my first term. And when I lost the weight, I can tell the difference. And in case you guys didn't realize, I introduced a lot of legislation. There's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of interested party meetings, there's a lot of committees that I have to go to, both that I serve on and that I have to report to for my bills. There's a lot of walking involved. And having an extra 100 pounds, is like having an extra person sitting on my shoulder while I'm walking around all day. And this medication has truly allowed me to be healthy and transition off and learn healthy lifestyle, healthy eating. And I want to make sure that employees that have made that commitment, and the state of Ohio told them that we were going to cover them, that they're not left with the short end of the stick. So that's why we drafted this legislation, and hopefully it can be model legislation for the rest of the country.
So to make it clear for me, the state employee would purchase the drug directly from the manufacturer, and then the state, DAS, would issue a rebate, right?
Correct.
So where does that money for the rebate come from?
It will come out of DAS's budget. The same coverage that they were just paying $45 million for GLP-1 coverage. They can now pay cheaper, $9 million, which is a substantial savings for DAS, and money that we've already allocated towards them for coverage.
And so they pay that, but is the employee getting stuck with, these drugs are pretty expensive, and some of the employees might make more and not get straight from the manufacturer. They might not get, a better deal. Like isn't that a fee scale thing?
No, so our direct to manufacturer programs that we viewed by both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly are not income based. They're based on whether or not you have health coverage. If you do not have health coverage, you can go direct to manufacturers. Now, there's caveats in this bill. We're not gonna allow the compound products that we're seeing people being sued over and seeing people being injured by these compounds that are out there on the market, where you got pharmacies mixing drugs and you got these specialty clinics that are trying to give injections. We want the proven FDA approved medications that are on the market now by those manufacturers. That's why they have to use those manufacturer programs, direct to consumer products. It's not income based. It's based on whether or not you have healthcare coverage. So if you do not have healthcare coverage, you can go direct to the manufacturer. Now, it may not be the self-injecting pen, may be cheaper. The non-self-injecting pen, where you got to draw it out of the vial and inject yourself, may be a cheaper version, but they also have the same programs for the self-injecting pens as well. And the employee will be able to pay out of pocket and get direct reimbursement. So we do not anticipate, at least from the two manufacturers that we work with, we do not anticipate any additional out-of-pocket costs to our employees.
When you talk about the compound products, if I'm assuming that the employee would still have to have a prescription from his doctor. Would you be allowed to go onto one of these websites and talk to a doctor online, get a prescription on the spot, and then the drug right away?
There's nothing in the bill that stops a normal procedure right now for going to a doctor, getting a valid prescription, and going direct to the manufacturer. The manufacturers require a prescription for these type of drugs. So the same caveat that's available now, I anticipate the same process that we go through for our normal coverage here in the state of Ohio under our actual insurance plan, which is you have to go to your doctor and your doctor has to show that it's reasonable and that you have a BMI of over 30. You know, my doctor was very, very choosy on what prescriptions I got on, and we tried everything, home exercise programs. I got on eating plans. I had to journal the food that I was eating, and we did testing and realized my metabolism was shot because of 10 years of being on opiates and muscle relaxers and sleeping pills and all kinds of stuff when I was injured. My metabolism was off, and I needed the assistance of medication. So we tried a bunch of different drugs through the Cleveland Clinic where I had my gastric sleeve. Dr. Bush is there, and he tried multiple types of medications, and then eventually he was the one that prescribed GLP-1s for me, and I met with him monthly on how it was working, how I was feeling, and we progressed, and now I just maintain my prescription through my primary care physician. And DAS had a weird caveat that they told me. They said if your doctor prescribed you GLP-1s and it said that you were gonna get a monthly dosage for X amount of months, DAS will continue to cover it. But if your prescription said you're on a monthly dose with 12 refills, they would not honor any refills. That's how weird the rules that came out of DAS in regards to GLP-1s were. They were gonna leave literally employees trying to rush back to their doctors by July 1st to try to get the proper wording on your prescription on whether or not you could have continued coverage. And we're saying we're not gonna deal with that uncertainty, that ambiguity. We're gonna go direct to manufacturer. And we encourage more states to pick up the calling and go let your employees go direct to manufacturer and compensate them for the money they spend out of pocket. They have some skin in the game. In the second year, we'll cover only 50%. You're gonna have some skin in the game towards your weight loss. You're gonna be encouraged to start stepping down your dosage or spreading out your injections like I did, and the cost will be minimal. I take an injection once every 4 to 6 weeks. So think that one prescription is 4 pens at essentially $500 out of pocket. If we were in my second year, I would be paying $250 out of pocket for 4 pens that will last me at least 4 months. So I'm willing to spend that money out of my own pocket to make sure that I'm staying healthy. I think that's reasonable and will help our employees lead a healthy lifestyle. And I mean, we've seen coverage from, you know, the Buckeye Institute wrote an article on reducing obesity could save Ohio hundreds of millions annually in healthcare costs and lost productivity. We see Global Data gave an article, obesity-related conditions cost Ohio over $12 billion a year, disproportionately affecting the public sector, and especially it's disproportionately affecting low-income individuals.
Is this bill still bipartisan? I saw Gerald was supposed to be here, and are you concerned about PBMs coming in and squashing this effort?
So it is a bipartisan bill. Representative Gerald is my joint sponsor. He was unable to be here today. He was looking forward to this. We've been working on this legislation for months, and it's been a priority for both of us. It's a bipartisan bill, but we've got other bills that we're trying. Our caucus, our Republican caucus, has been trying to curb PBMs because in our rural communities, we are losing independent pharmacies. Left and right, we are hearing from pharmacies that are being shut down because of the policies that are coming out of PBMs, and it is driving them out of business. And we're seeing even large retailers that have pharmacies shutting down pharmacies because it's not cost effective anymore, because the PBMs are siphoning off all of the profit in the industry and making it where pharmacies cannot survive financially. And enough is enough. At least when it comes to this actual drug that can be very expensive because they want to play middleman, we're gonna go around them.
Do you know of other examples where the legislators have told ADM what to cover in terms of their coverage? And also, do you, how does this fit in with the Republicans' general feeling over time that they don't want to mandate insurance coverage?
Yeah, so this isn't a mandate of insurance coverage. We're not requiring DAS to continue coverage. Instead, we're saying, hey, if you decide not to cover this, we're going to allow a direct-to-consumer model to prosper, and we're going to reimburse our employees for a limited amount of time, 24 months, right? You have to be it has to be medically necessary with a BMI over 30, right? Your doctor has to believe it's medically necessary to write your prescription. They have their own code of ethics when it comes to writing prescriptions. And I think it's a conservative and creative way to reduce cost of prescriptions here in the state of Ohio, especially on one of these very expensive drugs. And here's the thing, the manufacturers have been driving down the cost of these drugs for the last couple of years, and I believe the costs are going to continue to go down. But PBMs are requiring these rebate models where the market price for it is $1,300. It really only costs $500 to manufacture. Where's the other $800 going? Well, it wasn't coming to the state of Ohio. Instead, we were paying full market value, over $1,000 per on average, $1,300 for high doses, and the PBMs were sucking in the profits of $800 for every one of our employees. So that's why they were going around encouraging states to sign on to GLP-1 coverage, because they were going to make a ton of money off of us covering it through that model. I take it there's going to be some contentious hearings over this. PBMs are not going to want to go down lightly in the state of Ohio. But I think not only the Republicans, but Democrats are realizing that this is a horrible model that's resulting in higher drug prices here in the United States than we're seeing anywhere else in the world. And it's because the PBMs believe that because we're an economically viable country, that we have economic wealth here in the large consumer base, that they can strip our profits from us and give it to their shareholders. And we're finally fed up. Here, at least when it comes to the health of our employees, the state of Ohio's employees, the health of our employees will come first.
So the federal government, the bill being considered right now, budget bill, would basically cut some of the Medicaid coverage for some folks. If that happens, would getting rid of PBMs be a way that the state could continue to provide that health care coverage, or be a way to mitigate that reimbursement to the state from the feds that keeps that health care coverage going? How would that play out?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers, but what I can say is if Medicaid expansion was cut at the federal level and triggered by our budget, which I support, you got to think, we get 90% of that coverage paid for by the federal government. It's just an economics number, right? Everyone likes to look at these issues in isolation. People argue that we want increased school funding. Then the next one, we want increased child care expenditures. And the next one, we want increases in this and this. And then we talk about Medicaid coverage as well. The state of Ohio will be bankrupt if we attempted to cover 100% of the Obamacare expansion to Medicaid. We would be bankrupt. It's already a large portion of our budget, along with education. There wouldn't be money for homeless shelters, community centers, for Access to Justice Foundation. There wouldn't be money for any of that, because it would be taking too big of a portion of the pie for Medicaid coverage and for schools if we pay for it 100%. We will explore the idea of, when our next contract comes up on coverage for our health insurance plan, whether or not we should be signing on to a contract that has PBMs in it. I think that's a discussion we have to have here in the state of Ohio with our healthcare providers, is whether or not they have contracts with PBMs, and what is their prescription drug coverage going to look like. I think that's something we need to negotiate here in the state of Ohio, because we have to do better for our workers. Right? That's our first and main priority when we're talking about healthcare coverage for employees of the state of Ohio. Is the first priority should be quality healthcare to our workers, and the second should be a fiscal analysis of how much it's going to cost the state of Ohio. Because I have a fiduciary duty to the voters and to the taxpayers in the state of Ohio to get the best deal possible for our employees when we're going to give public or private healthcare to our employees. I have a fiduciary duty to get the best deal possible, and I don't think Ohio has the best deal right now.
I was just going to, very quickly, if you were on this drug because of your back issue, was that the driving force for why you were prescribed the drug, or was it, I don't know if I'm asking a personal medical problem, was diabetes related? Because it's my understanding that the state policy will continue to cover the drug for diabetics. Would you qualify under that? Would a back injury qualify?
No, so I've never been diagnosed with diabetes. When I was at my heavy, I was classified as morbidly obese and pre-diabetic. But when I lost the weight, when I was 300 pounds, I was just considered morbidly obese. It wasn't because of diabetes, it was because of my weight gain and my lack of ability to lose weight by traditional means, such as diet restriction. I even tried weight loss surgery that was medically approved through the state of Ohio, or through my private insurance at the time. And then the medications that were on the market just didn't work for me. Topamate and dopamine, they just didn't work for me. And when I found out what the ingredients are, I really didn't want to be on that stuff. So GLP-1s is something that's been around for decades, and it's been effective. But I'll tell you the inside baseball. When I met with DAS indicated that they are also looking at phasing out coverage for diabetes for GLP-1s in the state of Ohio. They chose the lowest hanging fruit because it was $45 million for 2,000 employees. They were trying to save on healthcare costs, and they cut the low hanging fruit. But they're also putting in a program trying to teach people with diabetes healthy lifestyle choices, and their goal is to phase them off of GLP-1s as well. And that'd be catastrophic. We've seen the success of it. We even see GLP-1s being investigated and researched right now for their ability to help with substance abuse issues. I think this is a great drug that's proven to be safe, and our employees should have access to it if it's medically necessary.
Do you think the problem stems with, the prices going up and all that from GLP-1s being used for reasons they were not first intended to be used for, right? It's diabetes drugs, we're using them for weight loss. Do you think that's why PBMs are hiking the prices here?
Well, I don't think PBMs are hiking the prices. The manufacturers actually have driven down the cost of manufacturing. Like, they have increased their production, even though the demand was high, which led to shortages of the drug. They increased their manufacturing base and their ability to produce this drug, and it's driving down the cost now. And the only difference is we're not seeing it in our healthcare coverage because PBMs are intentionally keeping the cost high so they can rake in the rebate from the manufacturers. They have agreements with the manufacturers that if they can get healthcare coverage in the states, in the private sector, in the public sector, for this type of drug, that the manufacturers will give a rebate that can be taken by PBMs, and that's what we're seeing. The cost of the drug to actually be produced is way lower than the actual market cost that our insurance companies are paying because PBMs are requiring us to pay the max amount so they can take the rebate.
So that 2,000 number that you just gave, 2,000 people on these drugs, that was non-diabetic. That's people who've already been cut.
Yeah, so the number that I was given directly from DAS when we had a meeting was that it was around 2,000 people that was specifically on GLP-1s for weight loss without diabetes. And these were the individuals who were going to be cut, and it was costing the state of Ohio $45 million a year. And under our proposed legislation, we will cut that down to potentially, and I don't even believe it's going to actually reach this number, just $9 million a year by cutting out the PBMs. That lets you know how much they were raking in just off of the coverage. Any other questions?
Just very quickly, obviously, you dropped this bill the day after the legislature's gone out for the summer, so it can't even be touched until October. Are you thinking in terms of anything retroactive, that somebody could go through the summer buying these drugs and then later come back and seek a rebate?
We would explore through the committee process because coverage is going to end July 1st. I'm truly disappointed that DAS didn't give me the opportunity to work on this issue. In the legislature, when we have holdups, I'm the person that they send into the room to have interested party meetings. When some of my members have a holdup on their legislation and they believe IPs, interested parties, are not operating in good faith, I go in the room and we negotiate, we work through all the BS. I have a pretty good BS meter, and we go through the talking points and we get it resolved. I did that with healthcare transparency last year. I've done it with healthcare ministries, this General Assembly. I've done it on other legislation in the past. I simply asked DAS for the time to have interested party meetings when I was made aware from an employee of the state that they were considering cutting coverage. And I was told that I would probably be given that time because the notice hadn't been given out. I asked for a week, and 2 days later an email went out saying that we were ending coverage. I didn't even get the opportunity to have my IP meeting, which was scheduled for the very next day. So by the time I reached out to the manufacturers, they had already got notification that the state of Ohio was ending coverage.
Does DAS's budget go up under this budget?
It will go down.
call for an increase now at DAS.
Yeah, I would have to look at the specific line item, but every single department in the state of Ohio got an increase. Every single department went up at least an inflationary increase. And then for this coverage to end on July 1st, when the legislature can't be in session to respond, I think was intentional, but it also goes with policy dates. So, you know, I'm disappointed in the decision that was made by DAS. I wish they would have reached out to legislators for a chance to fix this. Before, I could have gave them alternatives. There was 1,000 things they could have did differently. They could have required employees to titrate off. They could have required that coverage didn't extend past 20. We were already above the FDA guidelines, so we were ineligible for rebates here in the state of Ohio. So that means there was a myriad of options available for us to cut down on the actual utilization rate. And they didn't choose any of them. They just chose to end coverage. There was no discussions. There was no interested party meetings. They simply just ended coverage. And that's not the way we operate here in the state of Ohio. All right? I appreciate your time, guys.